Welcome to Defence Line, a weekly program on defence, security and more. In this episode, we are going to talk about Army's continuing presence in Jammu and Kashmir for internal security duties. With the reduction of violence in Kashmir Valley, the Union Home Secretary has announced the withdrawal of 10,000 out of 70,000 central paramilitary forces from the valley. Should Army too start the process of withdrawal from the valley, as demanded by some of the opposition parties and also human rights groups? Instead, should Army beef up its presence along the line of control with Pakistan? This is what we will discuss in Defence Line today. To discuss this, we have in our studios Lieutenant General Amar Aul, former Chief of Staff, Western Army Command, who had earlier commanded a brigade in Jammu and Kashmir, including Dras during the Kargil War. Major General C.S. Panag, former GOC of a division, who also served as BGS of a corps in Srinagar, and Brigadier V.K. Sharma, former Deputy GOC of Kilo Force in J&K. He had 4 continuous stints in the valley. Welcome to the studio, gentlemen. But before we get into the discussion, take a look at this report.
Back in the late 80s, when insurgency cropped up in Kashmir, it was left to the army to deal with the militants. A few years later, the army was deployed throughout Jammu and Kashmir so as to curb militancy. The army's presence in the state is estimated to be between 3 and 5 lakh troops. This roughly comes out to be a soldier for every 500 people. But almost 20 years on, militancy in Jammu and Kashmir has almost died down. This changed scenario has seen demands pouring in from various quarters for troop production from the state. Some suggest that the army should be deployed along the borders instead. Also, incidents of human rights violations in the valley, allegedly by army personnel, have made the pitch stronger for troop reduction. The revocation of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act has been a strong demand of the Kashmiris, and even the Chief Minister has voiced his opinion in its favour. But the Defence Ministry has still now opposed such demands.
We are in conversation with the Lieutenant General Amar Aul, Major General Panag and Brigadier Sharma. General Aul, since 2000 there has been much lesser violence in the valley. This has prompted the Union government to actually announce a reduction in the central paramilitary forces. Do you think it is time to reduce the presence of the army for internal security in the valley?
Before I talk to you as far as troop reduction is concerned, there is no doubt in the fact that incidents since 2000 have reduced to quite an extent. But we must be very sure as to why these incidents have reduced. It is because of the effective security measures that the armed forces have taken. We've had a security fencing. We have beefed up the areas from where the militants used to come in, and various other measures that have been taken over the years. And this we need to take into consideration, especially before we decide on reducing the troops. To my way of thinking, at present, as far as the army is concerned, we don't have a scope of reducing our troops at the moment. And
so you mean the situation, even though the situation has improved, the deployment should remain as it is?
The reason is that the army is not so much involved as far as counter-terrorism operations within the valley are concerned. They are involved more in guarding our LC, in plugging the gaps of the infiltrators that are coming in from across the LC.
Right. General Panag, since you served there in the 90s, what do you think? Should the army's presence be reduced? As of now, it almost looks like, a lot of people say it looks like an occupational army there.
No, it is not an occupation army. And I must correct this perception of people. The armed forces have acted with admirable restraint in J&K. You look at Chechnya, the state terror there. There's been no such thing there.
But even now, anything from 3 to 5 lakh troops, we don't know the exact figure, but don't you think it's too large a number for just one state?
One of the reasons why the incidents have gone down is not that the militants don't want to create incidents, it's because of the security environment. And one of the advantages is that intelligence build-up has been there. In 91, we had no intelligence build-up.
But General Parag, shouldn't that intelligence build-up be passed on to maybe the paramilitary forces or to the civil police?
Intelligence only comes when locals have confidence that they will be protected against actions of militants.
They don't seem to have much of a confidence in the army at this point in time, and there are often protests against the army.
Well, the protests, one, are stage managed. That's my opinion. Secondly is that army is treated as a whipping boy by everybody. Army can go back to barracks, and we continue in situation. What the people want is that there should be no interference in their day-to-day lives. But the grid must be maintained for sake of intelligence and for being able to react should incidents start happening again.
So you generally agree with what General All said?
Absolutely.
Brigadier Sharma, what is your opinion? As of now, it appears 1 Jawan to 500 people. Quite unfair, no?
I would start from basics. Firstly is when the army is deployed in a counterinsurgency environment, what is the role of the army? It's to create an environment where the terrorist is forced to come to a negotiating table. In this case, have we reached that stage?
No, definitely no.
So, in case the Home Secretary feels or others feel that we have reached that stage, shouldn't we go for a jugular? This is the time we should uproot it completely. I wouldn't advocate applying the Sri Lankan template, which is too utopian as far as we are concerned. I got some figures I'll just give.
Yes, yes, please.
I've been a staff officer when General All was a brigade commander. So we used to see what is the kill ratio. If you see the SF people killed and the militants killed, in 2008 we had a kill ratio of 1 to 3.98. That means if one soldier dies, 3.98 terrorists have been killed. It reduced to 3.02 in 2009. It reduced further, it stabilized in fact in 2010 at 3.36. If that be so, is it a healthy situation? It's all right sitting in an air-conditioned office and saying that we can remove people. And we can
when you, Brigadier Sharma, when you use terms like kill ratio, don't you sound actually like an occupational army? Some of these could be our own people.
No, I'll tell you. We again go. I'll go. So I might sound like one, but I'll give you another example. 2008 was a hot year. Now I'll give you why. 2009 was a hot year and 2010 has been a hot year. 2008, I can say not exactly hot year because it was a Jammu versus Kashmir criminal, Amarnath Yatra problem. 2009, Kamrawadi incident, where 2 ladies unfortunately were killed after having been raped. The CBI has now said they have not been raped, but there were lot
that
of
incident was reported. Yes.
In 2010, you had stone pelting. How have people sitting at higher headquarters reached a conclusion that things have become normal?
Brigadier Sharma, this is a situation which has been reported for a couple of years now. As I said, since 2000, there has been lesser incidents of militant violence. Let me bring in General just 1 minute. Yes.
I will lay a benchmark. Let the Chief Minister of J&K move around in the valley with just 2 PSOs. If he feels safe enough, situation is secure.
General Panag, now the other issue is that the infiltration incidents are still the same as they were before. Almost about 470 incidents are taking place. So how do you plug the LOC if you're not going to move out troops from the internal security duties?
The grid on the LC is separate from what troops are operating in the valley. That grid under no circumstances should be weakened. One. Secondly, most of the armed military formations there today are deployed for protection of the LC, which is not a international border. It is still a volatile border with Pakistan. And we have to, and our government's mandate is that not an inch of territory is to be lost. Therefore, there can be no troop reduction from those deployed in the
valley. But how do you plug the LOC then?
LOC is adequately plugged. The only way is that militants always find ways to come through, and the security forces keep amending. The militant is one step ahead. You put up a fence, he finds another wave coming in. So even the fence has to be put under surveillance. So a wonderful job is being done.
General, now another situation is being reported that there are, though the militant incidents of militant violence are less now, there have been numerous protests, some against the army, some against other security forces, some against the government. Do you think the army should be used to stop or quell some of these protests?
Well, these protests are all politically motivated, and unless it is quelled politically, I don't think the army should step in. As far as the army's role is concerned, within the valley is concerned, is basically confidence building measures where we could possibly help the civil administration out. But as far as protests are concerned, this is totally politically motivated.
So army should keep out of some of these.
Army should keep out of it.
General Pranav, before you go into the break, would you agree with what General Hall said?
Army is not meant to deal with situations which are beyond the control of the civil police, and the civil police are adequately equipped and have adequate strength to look after these protests. It is failure on the political front that either you have not been able to remove the cause for the protest, or you have not been able to educate people that these are engineered protests, and you please look at the ground situation, see for yourself.
Right. Here we will take a short break. When we return, we discuss if the role of the army in J&K needs a review. Welcome back to Defence Line. We are in conversation with three retired army officers with long experience in dealing with internal security in Kashmir. General, I know you don't agree that this is the time or the troops should be reduced, but if they were to be reduced, should that be done in the winter months or in the summer months?
Definitely not in the winter months, because now is the month of February, March, and this is the time when the passes are going to open. And if you have an idea of the camps, the militant camps that are existing across the LC, they are intact as they were earlier. And the chances of infiltration once the passes open are going to increase. So if we take a decision now of reducing troops, we may land us into trouble.
Right. There are two other issues. One relates to either the withdrawal of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act or amending this Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Are you in favor of either amending it or withdrawing this act? Because, as I said, a comparative peace has been reported from the valley.
Well, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was initially applicable in the northeast and subsequently came into force in J&K sometimes in 1990, if I am not wrong. And it was applicable when J&K has been declared as an entire disturbed area. But over the years, the situation has improved. I would not advocate any dissolution or of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, but yes, definitely I would like the Armed Forces Act to be applicable to only those disturbed areas where militancy exists today.
General, do you agree with what General Hall has said that you could withdraw it from certain areas, but you should not amend it and should not withdraw it completely?
I would give a different suggestion. One, I would like to make one point about the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. The Constitution does not allow the employment of armed forces against our own citizens except when specifically empowered by the Armed Forces Act. If you don't want the army to react to any militancy, to any incident, you can withdraw the Armed Forces Act.
I think you have to declare that area disturbed.
Yes. Now, what I would suggest is practically you take the line of control